Imagine this. You book an impulsive flight to Brazil, but realize too late you can't speak Portuguese. So before facing your first Latina, you spend the last hour before bed repeating a few phrases. Você vem sempre aqui. Você vem sempre aqui. Then a few hours later, you suddenly wake up inside a dream. You're standing in a small cafe somewhere in Rio with people talking all around you, but that's when you suddenly realize something. You never actually went on a plane, which could only mean you're inside a dream. And once a person regains consciousness within a dream, you're no longer just dreaming, you're lucid. That's when you walk up to the counter and try to order in Portuguese. At first, the words feel awkward and you completely mess up, but instead of feeling embarrassed, the waiter looks at you like he's waiting for you to say something, almost like the entire world paused until you figured out what to say. So you try again, and suddenly the sentence comes out smoother. So the big question is, did you just learn Portuguese in your sleep, or were you only practicing something your brain already knew? That's where this gets interesting, because lucid dreaming isn't just a fantasy world where you fly around and fight dragons. It might also be a mental practice room, a place where your brain can rehearse skills, test memory, and run simulations without the normal distractions of waking life. But before anyone gets too excited, we need to be very clear. According to clever science people, you can't simply download a language pack, allowing you to learn Portuguese, Finnish, or Japanese all in the span of a single night. But if you're frequently studying the language in real life, you might be able to speed up the process, or help you overcome the embarrassment of speaking out loud. So let's get into it. During a normal dream, you usually don't question what's happening around you. You might see impossible things like talking to Mike Tyson as a dinosaur or walking on the surface of the sun, and your brain just accepts it as an ordinary activity. But the term lucid refers to a state of mind which describes someone who is thinking clearly, sanely, and rationally. That one realization changes the experience. Now you aren't just being pulled through the dream. You can think clearly or make decisions, even remember goals from waking life. This is why the possibilities inside a lucid dream are endless. If you become aware inside the dream, you may be able to choose what to practice. Instead of letting the dream happen randomly, you could decide to practice ordering food in Japanese. Then the dream might create a cafe, an encounter, or throw you into One Piece. This doesn't necessarily mean the dream is teaching you brand new Japanese. It means your brain is creating an environment where you can practice the Japanese you already know. The big myth: learning while sleeping. A lot of people like the idea of learning while sleeping. It seems like a real-life cheat code. Imagine falling asleep listening to a language lesson in your headphones all night, and after a long night you wake up smarter. But real learning, unfortunately, doesn't work that easily. Your brain can strengthen memories during sleep, but it can't usually learn complex new information while you're fully unconscious. Learning a language requires active attention. You need to hear the words, understand the meaning, and connect them to real situations. For example, if you're learning French, it's not enough to hear a sentence once while sleeping. You need to know what the words mean. You need to know how they're used. You need to practice saying them. Sleep can help store and strengthen the information, but the main learning usually happens while you're awake. So the best way to think about it is this: waking life is where you learn the language. Sleep is where your brain helps organize and strengthen it. Lucid dreaming may give you a chance to actively practice it inside the dream. In other words, it's a less OP cheat code, but a cheat code nonetheless. Lucid dreaming as a practice room. So what's the simplest way to utilize lucidity when trying to learn a new language? That's easy. You should see the dream world as a safe place to practice. When people learn a language, what is the biggest problem holding them back? It's fear. The fear of sounding stupid, the fear of making mistakes, and the fear someone will judge their accent or grammar. In a lucid dream, that pressure simply doesn't exist. You can talk to a dream character without ever feeling embarrassed or hesitant. You can repeat the same sentence again and again until you're satisfied at how the conversation played out. But most importantly, you can make mistakes and try again. This may seem basic, but for most people this is a game changer. Language learning isn't only about knowing advanced grammar, it's also about being able to quickly remember simple phrases when you need them. A lucid dream can help you get more comfortable using those phrases. Why you need to study first. The most important thing to understand is that your dream can only work with what your brain already has. If you never learned a single word while awake, your dream probably can't teach you correctly. You need to see your dream as ChatGPT. If you ask it for the Japanese word for shrimp, even though you've never heard it before, it might give you a completely random word or straight up invent something new. You see, just like ChatGPT, if it doesn't know the answer, it'll sacrifice facts for pleasing you. But a dream is even worse because it's directly connected to your brain, meaning it might even make you feel like you understand something, even if it doesn't make sense. This is one of the biggest limits of dream learning. Dreams can feel very real, but they aren't always accurate. A dream character might speak fake French and your dreaming brain might accept it as real French. That's why you shouldn't trust a dream as your main teacher. Instead, you should use the dream to practice things you already learned correctly while awake. Because even if you forgot everything, your brain didn't, which in theory could teach you anything you've learned or possibly just overheard once. The Fluency Illusion. Just like I mentioned before, dreams has the ability to trick you using your own emotions, which includes making you feel smarter than you actually are. Inside a dream, you might feel like you're speaking another language perfectly. You might have a full conversation and feel completely fluent. But when you wake up, you realize the words were unclear, wrong, or completely made up. This phenomenon is called the fluency illusion. It means the dream gives you the feeling of being fluent, even if you can't speak a single word. Dreams are very good at creating emotions and impressions. They can make nonsense feel meaningful and make gibberish look readable. So after a lucid language practice, you should always test whether you were in full control or if the dream only made you think you were. Ask yourself if you can still remember the sentence, if you can write it down, say it out loud, and if it was actually correct. If the answer is yes, you just made sleeping efficient. If the answer is no, you need to improve your dream control. Dream incubation could help. Dream incubation means trying to guide what you dream about before you fall asleep. If you give your brain a clear topic or goal, it might help you gain more control inside the dream. For language learning, this could be very simple. Before bed, you choose a small language target. For example, if you want to practice introducing yourself in Japanese, you'll need to repeat a phrase before sleep, like "I will practice introducing myself in Japanese." You need to imagine the scene, picture yourself using the language, and tell yourself what you will practice if you become lucid. This doesn't guarantee that you'll dream about it, as dreams are very unpredictable, but they are greatly affected by whatever is on your mind during the day. So if you constantly remind yourself to practice Japanese, your brain might eventually create a dream around it. That's also why some people who are actively learning a new language might end up dreaming in that language, without even trying to. Using cues during sleep. For some people, using sounds, vibrations, or wearable devices is a highly efficient method to remind their brain of something during sleep. This is connected to an idea called targeted memory reactivation. The basic idea is simple. You study something while awake, and before sleep you connect it with a certain sound or cue. Then during sleep, you might hear that sound, which reminds your sleeping brain of the memory. This might even work even without you regaining consciousness. For language learning, this could mean hearing a soft sound connected to the words you studied, or using a gentle vibration that reminds you to become lucid. In the future, wearable devices may become better at helping people enter lucid dreams and practice specific skills. But this still isn't magic. The cue doesn't teach you by itself. It only helps bring back something you already learned. So what is the best way to practice language in a lucid dream? It's by keeping it simple. Don't try to learn an entire language in one night. That's something only the monks can do, probably. Instead, choose one small goal. Like for example, introducing yourself to a Latina. When you become lucid, create a simple scene. And if you don't know how, check out any of my other videos. It could be a beach, city, or a simple cafe. Then practice the phrase inside that scene as many times as it takes, while remembering to stay calm, knowing everything around you isn't real. Don't overload the dream with too much information. The more complicated your goal is, the more likely the dream is to become unstable or confusing. Simple practice is better than trying to do everything. But what's even more important is what to do when you wake up. As soon as you wake up, it's crucial to write down what happened. Write the words or phrases you practiced, then check if they were correct and say them out loud. Compare them to a real source, like a language app, a dictionary, or a native speaker. This is all to fact-check the dream. As I mentioned before, dreams can be inaccurate. You don't want to memorize fake words or incorrect grammar. The dream is only useful if you connect it back to real learning. So the process should be: study while awake, practice and dream, fact-check while awake. That makes the dream part of a real learning system. The problem with turning sleep into work. Lucid dreaming can be exciting, but it's important not to turn sleep into another job. Sleep is supposed to help you recover, and lucid dreaming is supposed to give you freedom. Your brain and body need rest. So if you try to use every night for intense practice, you may wake up tired or more stressed than usual. And if your sleep quality gets worse, it might even affect your learning ability. So lucid dream practice should not be forced every night. Maybe you try it once or twice a week while having fun for the rest. The goal is not to make sleep stressful. The goal is to use the opportunity when it happens. If lucid dreaming makes you tired, frustrated, or obsessed, take a break. Good sleep is more important than dream practice. Lucid dreaming isn't a shortcut around learning, but it might be a useful extra tool that would give you an advantage. With that said, I hoped you liked the video, and thank you for watching.